Okay, good day to all. I am Dr. Mogana from PPSG, welcoming all of you to our first webinar session of Series 4 entitled Electron Microscopy Series. Small World Shows Us the Unseen. Today, let me introduce my speaker for today, Dr. Najibullah from Bahauddin Zakaria University, Pakistan. Let me go through his biography for all of you. Okay, Dr. Najibullah is now working as assistant professor of biochemistry in Bahauddin Zakaria University, Multan, Pakistan. He's done his PhD and postdoctoral research work at Institute of Biochemistry, Molecular Biology, University of Hamburg, Germany. He worked extensively in the field of structural biology, in particular in crystallography, X-ray solution scattering, SAX, biophysical methods, dynamic light scattering, nanoparticle tracking analysis, and mass photometry. And also with in protein aspiration purification, enzyme kinetics, phytochemicals, antimicrobial analysis, and also structure activity relationship. He also involved in a collaborative project on SARS-CoV-2, and his work has been published in Gunter et al. Science this year. And currently involved in 2 cryo-EM projects. Without further ado, let me welcome Dr. Najib for his webinar talk. The screen is yours, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mogana, for a nice and detailed introduction. So I think I can start the slide share. So,
Yes.
so the first slide of my today's presentation. Okay, I think everybody can see this slide share. The PPT with white background, University of Hamburg. That's clear for everyone, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so today I will discuss about the structural and biophysical analysis of multimeric PDX proteins. I will tell you in next few slides what PDX proteins are. Actually, in today's talk, I will tell you about different techniques I used for these proteins, PDX proteins and their complex, how I determine their three-dimensional structure using variety of structural biology techniques accompanying biophysical methods. So my today's talk will cover structural biology basics. What is structural biology? Synchrotron radiation sources that are helpful, that are used for X-rays crystallography, biophysical methods which are used to determine the 3D, which are complementary techniques used for determining three-dimensional structures of proteins. ZOX analysis. What is ZOX? Small angles, X-rays, scattering. And electron microscopy, I use it as a complementary technique along with X-ray crystallography. And so the structural biology actually determine the precise and precise and actual information about the three-dimensional structure of any drug targets, and along with structure-aided drug designing. Overall, the structural biology is actually a field which is where we use molecular biology. There is a starter techniques, different techniques using molecular biology and different bioinformatics techniques. And then biophysics, we use it like radiation sources, how they work, how X-rays are scattered, and what is Bragg's law, Bragg's equation, etc. These kind of stuff we use in like crystal symmetry, crystals. We study these in biophysics. And then we come towards biochemistry, because you get three-dimensional structure of protein, and then you discuss the detailed three-dimensional structure of protein in biochemistry. So structural biology is actually a field where we study mainly 3 fields: molecular biology, biophysics, and biochemistry. Like suppose if you have amino acids, then these amino acids, they do not come like this. So behind these structures, there are many efforts from pioneer crystallographers who determine structure by hands, measuring angles, Ramachandran plots, etc. Ramachandran. So like now we get directly by cryo-EM or X-ray crystallography, we get these these electron densities along with the so you can see every atom has its own electron density. Like suppose if you look at alanine, so this is a methyl group of alanine. Like phenylalanine, this is the benzene ring of phenylalanine. So when when there is benzene ring in front of these X-rays, you can get electron density, these dotted line dots. These are the electron density of this benzene ring, like tryptophan or proline. So like these things we study in structural biology. We determine the electron density. After electron density, we put the amino acids of the proteins, and then we determine the three-dimensional structures. Three-dimensional structure, I mean this one. So this is the three-dimensional structure of one of the PDX protein, PDX1, where you can see helices, alpha helices, beta sheets, loops, regions. So these amino acids then form in secondary structure, and then in tertiary structure, quaternary structure, they form three-dimensional quaternary structure after arrangement of these amino acids. So like now I will tell you about this PDX proteins. These PDX proteins are involved in one of the potential novel drug targets, which is pyridoxal phosphate synthase protein. It's a complex. It's a huge complex, 24-meric complex. So it's a mixture of two proteins, that is PDX1 protein and PDX2 proteins. PDX1 protein is PLP synthase and PDX2 protein is PLP glutaminase. Both these proteins, PDX1 is in hexamer and dodecamer form in solution, it's reported. PDX2 is monomer form in solution. Both these proteins combine together and they form complex PDX1, PDX2 complex in a solution, which is 24-meric. And this 24-meric complex work to synthesize vitamin B6 de novo. This pathway, vitamin B synthesis, B6 synthesis pathway is absent in humans, where it is reported by one of our main contributor in this project. He is from university. He's working in Sao Paulo, Carson Ringer. So they already report this presence in different plasmodial species and in Staphylococcus aureus. So it's reported. It's published from one of our collaborator in USP. There are many working in cytotoxicity, other stuff. So they reported already their presence in plasmodial and the Staphylococcus, and it is absent in humans. So that's why this target is a good drug target to study different drugs against it. And currently we are working on it. We have some drugs. We are working on it to get a cryo-EM structure. So both these PDX1 and PDX2 proteins combine together and they form 24-meric PDX1, PDX2 complex. Now, let me show you this PDX1, which is PLP synthase domain. They just call it PDX, pyridoxal 1 protein. This is one of its hexamer form. You can see it in silver color, and then this another hexamer bind to it, and they form PDX1 dodecamer. And you know that hexamer structures are, in nature, hexamer structures are more stable structures. So they form the more stable structure, nature stable structure hexamer. So hexamer and hexamer, they combine together and they form PDX1 dodecamer. This dodecamer react with PDX2 and it form PDX1, PDX2 complex. You can see this purple color PDX2 molecules binds on the periphery of PDX1 molecules. And now, and it's also reported, we reported for the first time that these PDX2 molecules can detach from PDX1 and it can form again PDX1 back in solution. Further, I can show you in video how these molecules are arranged in 3 dimensions, PDX1 and PDX2. This is PDX1 hexamer. Another hexamer bind to PDX1 hexamer and it form PDX1 dodecamer. I'm sorry for that. So now you can see PDX1 dodecamer and this PDX1 dodecamer, you see here PDX2 molecule binds periphery of PDX1 dodecamer and it form 24 mers PDX1 PDX2 complex. Okay, so we know the from starting protein to get to the structure. First, you have to go for molecular biology. You clone the protein in the plasmid and in vector, and then then you express it after transformation. After expressing, you purify protein. So this is the elution profile, size exclusion, chromatography purification of both PDX1 and PDX2 proteins. After expressing proteins PDX1 and 2 are purified. This elution profile is for PDX1. This is for PDX2. So, doctor, in the last, I will ask about this A280, why we are using absorbance at 280 millimeter for determining size exclusion, what is coming out of size exclusion column, why we are using A280 absorbance. And then both protein PDX1 and PDX2, when they were eluted, they both were mixed in 1-to-1 ratio. And then you purify it again, pass it from another column. So this size exclusion column, and you get PDX1, PDX2 complex. And these are unbound PDX1 and PDX2 molecules. For both proteins, it's not a must. For proteins, for molecules, we know in chemistry that if you mix something, two things, it's not a must that they go towards, it's possible. But here you can see that they are in equilibrium. So some molecules are bound to each other and they form the complex, and some molecules are still in unbound form, PDX1 unbound and PDX2 unbound. So they are in equilibrium in bound and unbound state. Here you can see the SDS page profile of PDX1 molecule, around 35 kilodalton, around 25 kilodalton for PDX2, and PDX2 molecule is eluting in monomer and dimer form. Here you can see the complex. If you take this peak, check by SDS page, you will get two bands. So two bands mean that this peak contains a protein molecule, which is a complex of two protein molecules. So it is a complex of PDX1 and PDX2 molecules. Now we go towards biophysical method, which we call dynamic light scattering. Dynamic light scattering technique, where you put the sample in the cuvette. Here we use a laser light. Actually, it is a laser light. You put sample in the cuvette like spectrophotometer. You put the sample in the cuvette and you pass the laser light. Then you get the scattering profile. So based on the size, so you get this. You can see this heat map profile. This heat map in here you can see nothing. So it's blue and no molecules in this radius range. Here you can see radius range. It means there is some molecule which is in this radius range, which is around 7 something. I wrote it down, but I think it's not shown here. It is 7 nanometer hydrodynamic radius of the protein molecule, hydrodynamic radius. Here, this is PDX complex, whose size is more than 7 nanometer. The radius size is more than 7 nanometer. So diameter would be, if it's 7, diameter would be 14. So this complex size is around 10 and 11. Diameter would be 20 or 22 nanometer diameter. This is radius, hydrodynamic radius. This is PDX2 radius, DLS investigation profile, and it's a bit more polydispersed. It's not completely like this. So a size is range from I'll say 5 nanometer to 2 nanometer hydrodynamic radius, and you can multiply by 2 to get this diameter. So this is PDX2 molecule. Then I checked. Then we go towards the. Then we take this protein PDX2 to see either if it's in monomer form or it's in dimer form, which form is stable. So then we go towards. Okay. So now you can see the radius and along with molecular weight. So like DLS can also give you estimated molecular weight information. It's not a must. It works on based on Stokes-Einstein equation. You can note it down and search afterwards what is Stokes-Einstein equation. So this radius, hydrodynamic radius formulation and molecular weight information, it's based on Stokes-Einstein equation. So then we get the hydrodynamic radius values. Like for PDX2, it's like average is 2.8 nanometer hydrodynamic radius. Now then this PDX2, we took it and we go towards the DLS, and DLS is used to study the reversible oligomerization of protein molecules. So reversible oligomer means you can study the oligomerization method. And for PDX2, you can see this PDX2 that with concentration, here you can see at 2 milligram, it is 3.5 hydrodynamic radius, so it's small size. If you increase the concentration of PDX2, it goes towards a higher radius profile, like from 3.5 to 4.2. If you increase the concentration of PDX2 further, you can see it here, it goes to 16 nanometer radius. So it means it is oligomer, not aggregating, I will say. It goes towards oligomerization, not aggregation. So there is difference between oligomerization and aggregation. You can ask me afterward the difference. I can explain you afterwards. So it goes towards oligomeric form. Then further, if you increase its concentration to, if you concentrate it to 10 milligram, 11 milligram, it goes to 44, from 44 to 111 nanometer radius molecules. So it means PDX2 molecules are oligomerized and they form high molecular weight molecules. Now, interestingly, by DLS, when you mix PDX1 protein, monodisperse protein with PDX2 oligomeric protein, you can see in DLS the radius shift. So radius is shifted from 14 nanometer to 10 nanometer. It means those oligomeric molecules again comes back to normal monomeric or dimeric or trimeric form. Okay, so this one was further studied by DLS, which we called time resolved DLS. Time resolved DLS, where we record the snapshots for 24 or more than 24 hours. And I just took the snapshot for 12 hours maximum. So now here you see, here we mix, here start PDX1, it is mixed with PDX2. The moment when you mix PDX1 protein, other protein, you get high molecular weight size molecules, large radius profile, radius profile. And afterwards, you let it run the instrument, let it, the reaction happens in the cuvette, then you get the radius shifting towards the complex size range that is 10 nanometer. Here you can see how this reactions happen. So you can see in video, first is PDX1, P1 protein. Here you mix P2, and then reactions start happening here at P2. Size is increasing, reaction is occurring. So the Brownian motion increases actually at the background. So then that's why you get a bit high radius profile. Afterwards, when the reaction happens, you get the complex, but the complex size is a bit more than PDX1. So it means PDX2 react with PDX1 and they form the complex. If they didn't react, there should be two radius in this radius profile type of molecule. I can show you here now. Here you see, let me first start the video, then you can understand what I mean. Here is PDX1. You mixed with oligomeric PDX2 molecule, which was 111 nanometer. You mixed it, radius is shifting, increasing. It's not abrupt shifting, it is shifting slowly. It means reaction is slow now because monomeric PDX2 can react with PDX1 very efficiently. But here, PDX2 is oligomeric. First, it must come out from oligomeric state to small multimeric forms, and then it interact with PDX1 to form the complex. So the reaction rate is low, you can see from the slope, and you can also see that complex is formed in a 10 nanometer range here, but along with complex, there are still oligomeric PDX2 molecules that are unbound. They are present in solution. So this can be done by DLS. Now further, to confirm this phenomena in real by images, you can see this, you can transform this by EM, negative staining EM. Then we go towards negative stain EM. We put the sample which was, let me show you. We put this this oligomeric polydispersed sample, this one, the second sample. We take this sample and put it on DLS, on EM grids, and negative stain. After negative staining, you can see here, that few PDX2 molecules binds to PDX1. It's not completely saturated. So it's not completely saturated. So complex saturation is now one of the, it was one of the negative point in sense, because if the complex is saturated, then you can determine the tri-EM structure. So it was one of the point which we were then brainstorming. What is the reason for its unsaturation? Now the second sample, which I told you, the oligomeric sample, here you can see in oligomeric form that the complex is formed, but its hydrodynamic index is more. The size is also a bit more than the first complex. And here you can also see this these aggregated, oligomeric PDX2 molecules that are unbound to PDX1 molecules. What I mean from this, I mean in first case with PDX1, monomeric PDX2 P2 molecule binds, and in second case with P1, P2 binds in multimeric forms, either in dimer or trimer or tetrameric forms, but they are binding to P1 protein. And now, then we go towards another technique which we called at ZOX, small angles X-ray scattering, which we use to determine three-dimensional in solution 3D shape of molecules. Shape of molecules in solution, 3D shape of molecules in solution, we determine it by small angles X-ray scattering. We bombard the sample in solution, like suppose you have protein in solution from 1 milligram to 20 milligrams. Any of this concentration, you take the sample, you bombard it by X-rays. After bombarding by X-rays, you get scattering curve. From scattering curve, there are different steps. We use different software. Afterward, you get this P of R function, P of R, which we call radius distribution profile. Radius distribution profile. You can see it here for the green is PDX1. For green, you can see how PDX1, from the shape, we can determine the shape of molecules. So from this shape, it means it is a spherical protein. And here P2 protein, it's not completely spherical. It is like open molecule. And for complex, you can see it here. It's not completely coming like this, like in PDX1. It is showing tailing effect. We call it tailing effect. And tailing effect means that the protein is spherical, but it has some non-spherical protein molecule bind to it. So this tailing, we can see it. So from this P of R, I can imagine how molecules will look like. So then you, by different softwares, applying different software afterwards, from this P of R function, you get the three-dimensional solution structure of protein molecules like this. One of the structure is ab initio model, where you do not put any restraints, and one of the structure is rigid body, which is called ZASRIF, is a special terminology we use in structural biology. So this is PDX1 molecules. You determine its size, you determine its three-dimensional shape, how it look like. And then PDX2, you see it here by ZAS also. It is not monomer, it's a dimer with somewhat trimer contribution. So it means PDX2 protein tends to oligomerize. Then the complex, you can see it here how complex is arranged. PDX1 in center with the main player in its function, and P2 molecule binds to its periphery. So this what we determine by small angle X-ray scattering results. Next, so we crystallize PDX1 molecule, PDX1 protein molecule. After purification, we crystallize this molecule. After crystallization, these are the crystals of PDX1 molecule. We bombarded by X-rays here. The red circle is the X-rays where in the region where X-rays are bombarding on the PDX1 crystal. And after getting the diffraction pattern, we solve the three-dimensional structure. You can see this protein molecule present in the crystal. And this is the electron density around this protein molecule, and how this electron density is arranged around the protein molecule. You can see it here. And we use one terminology called asymmetric unit. So like you have crystal lattice. In crystal lattice, there is unit cell. In unit cell, there is one small unit. We call it asymmetric unit. So this is one asymmetric unit where PDX1 molecule, dodecamer molecule, where PDX1 dodecamer molecule is arranged. This is dodecamer. 12 PDX1 monomer are arranged in this one asymmetric unit. And this asymmetric unit, further, it constitutes unit cell. So when you go towards finding the unit cell of your crystal, so in this unit cell, there were two asymmetric units. It means one dodecamer was present in one asymmetric unit. So here are two dodecamers. Both dodecamers are present in one unit cell. And both dodecamers are distant at 20 angstrom from each other. So this is the unit cell information. Further, we determine the three-dimensional arrangement of these molecules in the unit cell. It means like protein is crystallized in the unit cells, and then how these unit cells are arranged to each other, or how these protein molecules are arranged three-dimensionally. So then we create one of the software we use. Mostly we use it PyMol or Chimera. So you use PyMol or Chimera to create symmetry mates. Symmetry mates mean how these three-dimensional molecules are arranged three-dimensionally. These, you can see it here, the two PDX1 molecules are arranged in one parallel in one direction, and another one is arranged in at certain angle. Then we go to import elements which can be used to which can be used further for drug designing. So then we go further for important structural elements. So overall, this PDX1 is beta alpha 8 barrel structure. Beta alpha 8 barrel mean there are 8 helices, main 8 helices, and 8 beta sheets. Along with helices, there are few insertions, like alpha 6 helix is one insertion, alpha 6 prime, alpha 6 double prime. Alpha 8 helix is also two insertion, alpha 8 prime, alpha 8 double prime. There is one more helix, alpha n. I will tell you afterwards its importance. And now we are considering this alpha n helix for drug designing. So then we determine the structure element like alpha 8 helix. This alpha 8 helix, it is present here in this position. It is involved in hexamer formation, this alpha 8 helix. So there were many hydrogen bondings between from this helix. The amino acids present in this helix region were involved in interprotomer bonding. That's why, so we find that it is involved in hexamer. After mutation study, we find it is involved in hexamer formation. And this alpha 6 prime, double prime, along with alpha 6, it's two insertion. They are involved, they are here. Alpha 6 helix is here, 6 prime is here, double prime is on top. So they are involved in dodecamer formation. They form hydrogen bonding from one protomer from one hexamer, another protomer from another hexamer. They form interprotomer, interhexamer hydrogen bonding to form dodecamer. So this was also an interesting region which can be used for drug designing. Plus alpha 8 double prime region is interesting region to form for drug designing. And there is also one pocket here at alpha 6, alpha 7 region. There is pocket which can be used to design drugs. So further, we focus on one of its structural elements, that is alpha n helix, which is the N-terminal helix, which is different in Vivix from other, is compared to other plasmodial proteins. We focus on alpha n helix, which is involved in PDX complex stabilization, and alpha 2 prime helix, which is involved in entering the substrates. Ribose 5-phosphate, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, and ammonium chloride are 3 substrates which are used by this enzyme to form pyridoxal phosphate. So this alpha 2 helix it's completely like it is on both sides. There are long loops. These loops region control its movement. I mean, open conformation and closed conformation. So we focus on these two helices region and use it as drug designing. Here, I don't want to show it because its time is running. How this loop, this helix alpha 2 prime moves when you enter, when substrate enters and substrate leaves. So overall, now let's come towards summary. Like biophysical technique, DLS and ZOX, they are used to determine the solution stable forms, and for PYWAVES, they are showing that dodecameric PDX1 is stable in PYWAVES. Whereas in EM and crystallization study indicate dodecamer form of PDX1 also, which I showed you, whereas S. aureus is found in hexamer form. It do not form dodecamer, but in crystalline form, it was formed in dodecamer, and the reason I told you that there was phosphate ion, that's why those phosphate ions were involved in dodecamer. PDX2 is involved, mainly present in oligomeric form, forming dimer or trimer or multimers or oligomers, not aggregation, whereas S. aureus PDX2 is in monomer, where now PYS PDX complex investigated by SEC, by DLS, by ZOX, along with EM studies indicate that it's dynamic in solution. It's not completely 24 mers. Sometimes it's less than, mainly it's less than 24. So saturation is still under investigation. This hexamer and how it formed the complex formation in hexameric state. So this work was under supervision of Professor Berzel, along with Marcus Perben, Carsten Ringer from Brazil, Celestin from DRC Congo, Sven Falke from DAISY, and Cryo-EM group was also involved. It's present in CSSB, DAISY Hamburg, and there were also help from HEC and BZU Multan. They also helped me in this project. And with this, I finished. And I think you guys can now ask if there is some confusion or anything you want to know about this project. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Najib. It's very informative and a lot of, actually, I personally learned a lot. I hope all the participants learn a lot of things from your presentation. Just okay, the question answer session, we start with, I think, if you refer to our chat box, we got few questions
Okay.
lined up.
Okay.
The first is from Dr. Shahid Rehan. Why do you have all 2D in same orientation? Is it a problem?
Yes, so very good question, Dr. Rehan. I think I'm not allowed to see, I cannot see the chat. It's only with the administrators, huh? Okay. Okay, so Dr. Rehan, actually this is the problem. Until now we are working on this. I'm not directly involved in optimization of this this thing, how to optimize, but this CSSB group is working in optimization. I'm only involved in from expressing purification, and then after purification, structure solving structure. So this is my part. Behind that, this technical things like how they are using different, they suggest me something like different detergents, something different solution they were asking about that we will order and we will use those different solutions. So the orientation is an issue. We are currently working on that, but until now we didn't solve this thing.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Najib. So next question is from Dr. Shafra Samad. If I say explain the difference between oligomerization and aggregation.
Yep. Okay. So oligomerization means protein is going towards higher multimeric states, but still the protein is functional. It can work. But an oligomerization mean, an aggregation mean protein goes towards denatured form. So it means protein will not work its function. So its three-dimensional shape is still not maintained. Its three-dimensional shape is disturbed.
Okay.
either by changing pH or by temperature, anything it can be.
Okay. Next question, Doctor.
Can I say something what just Dr. Najib said? Shahid speak.
Okay. Dr.
Yes,
Shahid, you can go on.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for a wonderful talk. It was really amazing work. One comment I would like to say about the oligomerization and aggregation is often when we see oligomerization in vitro, let's say when we purified protein in test tube, it may be that it's a functional protein, but in often cases we saw that the oligomerization the protein is soluble per se, but it's non-functional because in physiological states, let's say inside the cell, proteins are actually very few proteins actually go to a very high concentrations. Especially if you are aiming at crystallizing the protein, those concentration rarely exist for most of the proteins. So for clarity of the students, if they are here, yes, oligomerization means the protein is soluble in the solution state. Aggregation means that it's insoluble and hence it's non-functional. But oligomerization may also lead to a non-functional protein, especially if this physiological threshold, which is usually required for the activity, is actually reached. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shahid, Rehan. And okay, the next question from Dr. Shafras is also explain what can be done with the COVID-19 protein structure using cryo-EM technique and what you publish in this regard. Dr. Najib?
Okay, so better I can share one of the paper, then they can directly, maybe Doctor, you have that paper link, you can just share in the chat or somewhere.
Okay, I think
I can share my screen. Okay, let me
yes,
stop sharing screen. So the protein we work on is a main protease, protein from coronavirus. Maybe you are familiar with main protease. So that main protease protein we crystallized. It was already crystallized many times. Many group crystallized it, and one of the pioneer of who is working on coronavirus is Rolf Helgenfeld. So we already work with that person also. He's also there in the paper. Can I share the screen?
Okay.
So then we use drug libraries. More than 6,000 compounds we screen after, and more than more than 10,000 crystals. We studied more than 10,000 crystals. And Dr. Rehan maybe know that crystallizing one protein, how much effort and how much money and fund you needed. So like then we use more than 10,000 crystals with more than 6,000 drugs. Afterward, we find 39 compounds that are binding to main protease. Of those, 6 are, I think they are now in clinical stages. 6 of the drugs are already in clinical stages. So they are already almost close to drugs. So this is the paper, like the heading access screening identifies ectosides, allosteric inhibitors of SARS coronavirus main protease. So this is a group of almost 100 participants, and main two are one of our professors, Professor Christian Berzel and Alke Mintz and Henry Chapman, known scientists in biophysics, and Ralph Hilgenfeld, the pioneer in coronaviruses, was also involved. This project took almost 7 months. 100 people were working continuously, day and night. So like day and night, almost 100 people were working on this project. And now we are working after main protease, we are working on another protein of this coronavirus. We called it papain-like protease PL-Pro. Maybe someone knows it. So we are also working on that and screening those different drugs against this papain-like protease. I think I can answer it.
Okay.
You want to know something more?
I think the participant can read your papers to get a
Okay.
clear idea, Dr. Najib.
I think you can share in the group afterwards.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. I will share in the group. And
Thank
the
you.
last question from Dr. Shairehan, are these synthetic inhibitors or natural products?
Those we use for against main protease or what? We are here talking about vitamin B6, Dr. Rehan.
I think I'm talking about your slide. Maybe the second slide, second last or last slide, you showed that you are pursuing the structure
Yeah.
of the protein with the inhibitors, and I was curious that are these synthetic or natural products, because those look like more like a macrocycles, not really like a small molecule inhibitors. But if you say something about those, that would be great.
So they are those inhibitors are actually they are 500 to 600 Dalton in size.
Okay.
So they're not so small, and they are like analogs of one of its substrates. It means they are not natural, so they are obviously we contact one of the Fraunhofer, one of the company. They synthesize it, we purchase it from there, and now we use it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, the last questions from Dr. Shafras is what is the principle of cryo-EM, its application in other disease and drug study? Just for our for participants who are from a different field, Doctor.
Okay, so like tomorrow, I think next lecture is from Dr. Rehan. He is cryo-EM specialist. I use cryo-EM is just a complementary technique. I'm a crystallographer, but I think Dr. Rehan can answer it. But like we can use it mainly like if you know the three-dimensional structure of protein, you like suppose suppose Parkinson disease or Alzheimer's disease. These diseases are caused by protein aggregation. So if you know how this protein is aggregating, which part of the protein is cause aggregation, like tau protein, tau-martin protein is aggregating protein. If you know the three-dimensional structure of protein, how you determine the three-dimensional structure of protein by X-ray crystallography or by cryo-electron microscopy. You know three-dimensional structure, you know each helix, you know each beta sheet, you know loops, I mean, you know all those structural elements of the protein. Then you design drugs against those proteins. Those drugs are then used against different diseases.
Okay.
I just summarize it. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I think from participant. I think Dr. Najib, I think no more questions. Thank you very much, Dr. Najib, for very good, informative and for sharing your experience and also your research to us. That's all from us. Thank you very much. That's all.